agenda has been posted in accordance to all the reporting requirements to satisfy the state of Texas and the TPA. We have agendas in the back if you'd like to follow along with a hard copy. It's also going to be behind us on the screen. If you see us looking down, we're looking at the agenda and have some attachments on our devices. So if you see us looking like we're not paying attention, most of the time we aren't. Sometimes we're checking the agenda on this device as well. So this is the regular board meeting for Wednesday, December 11th. As I said, for the month of December. We have the right to take any of these action items or any other items in any order, so we can change those up should we need to. For example, sometimes we don't like the construction guys here too long because they're charging us, so we'll get them out early. As usual, we start with the invocation and the pledge of allegiance. If you'll please rise.
Dear Lord, may you bless our efforts and help us sit present with one another, mindful of our purpose. Send your wisdom upon us so that we may draw upon it and experiences of yesterday as we respond to the questions and concerns of tomorrow. Give us freedom to speak the truth boldly and with kindness. Patience to listen openly, confidence to discover and explore new possibilities. Bless this unseen work that we do on behalf of our students who, through their education, will strive to make the difference in this world. We ask this in your name.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. You may be seated. We'll stick to the agenda so far, and we'll go with the recognitions and introductions. If you have everybody here, let's wait. If you're not here, you want to wait, or you want to talk about it?
I'm not doing them this month. I'm going to wait.
All right.
Because they've got one more step.
Okay. All right. And who was it going to be?
Sarah Thuray and Miles Korzekwa, they went to Congress, but they're going to be going to state pretty quick. We're banking on them winning the entire thing, and we'll come back and present them once they do that.
Even better then. Hold on. Stand by on that. So we'll move to citizen communication. Anybody sign up? Everybody just wants to come listen. Wonderful. Let us talk, I guess. All right, so I don't have to read that. So we'll go to the adoption of the consent agenda. There's two items as usual. The first is the approval of the November 13 regular board meeting minutes. The second is the approval of the November 2019 financial report. Both of those attachments have been sent to the board prior to the meeting for review. So the table is open for any action concerning the consent agenda. We'll take it as one item. Seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. 7-0, we have established a quorum, if I didn't say that earlier, so all four members are present. That'll take us to the action items. We'll take those in order. There's only two. The first one is the 2019 Financial Audit and Compliance Report.
Okay. You have that in front of you now, and it's also attached to the agenda. I'm going to introduce Michael Peachnick with Good Morning Peachnick. They are our auditors. There's a few things that I kind of want to highlight to you, stuff that we talk about on a monthly basis, and then Mr. Peachnick will come over and go over some things that he needs to go over with people on the report. I'm going to focus on budget. We look at 3 budgets on a regular basis all the time that y'all approve: general fund, food nutrition, and debt service. So they'll turn to page 42 and 43.
What's your title?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's the staff. Do I need to say something about the governance letter before we start this?
Okay.
She'll address the governance letter in a second. It is kind of required when we do it. So page 42 and then 43. That's our general fund. There you go. There we go. You can see the revenues budgeted where it says original and then final. You know, we had some budget amendments throughout the year, and then actual. So you can kind of see how we fared out with our revenues and then our expenditures by function. The bottom line is on page 43. It's the third line from the bottom of page 43 where it says net change in fund balance. Our 18-19 original approved budget had a deficit of $530,000 or just over. The amendments we made, which included the new bleacher system in the high school gym, which was almost $120,000, increased that deficit to about $657,000. But when all was said and done, between our revenues and our expenditures, we did experience $278,000 deficit for the year. So we did come in under budget on the deficit, which is really good. And I want to point out a couple of things. That includes the bleachers, the $120,000 we spent on the high school bleachers, the new bleacher system. Also, that included an expensive transportation year. We had that additional route to San Antonio and back that we had to increase the budget for. And then this summer, when we increased the budget again for new staff and to outfit the transportation department, all of that was part of that deficit. So I just want to point out that that was money well spent on things that we needed for the district. Are there any questions on general fund budget? The child nutrition budget is on page 60. And it's the same thing here. You can see our original, the final budget, which included some amendments. We did one amendment at the end of the year for that. And we actually landed at the end of the year. We were originally budgeting about a $1,500 deficit, and we ended up pocketing just over $8,000. That one's really hard because you never know what you're going to eat, not eat. That one's kind of hard, but we came in pretty close. And then the last budget that you all approved also monitors the debt service fund, which is the next page on page 61. Originally, our budget was going to try to draw down some of that fund balance so that we would keep our tax rate as low as possible. And so we predicted to use $81,000 out of our fund balance. We did make it a budget amendment to utilize some additional revenues that we were experiencing. And so we did end up drawing down our fund balance slightly, but our revenues were good, so we only drew down about $35,000. Any questions on that service? I'm going to let Mr. Kieschnick take over and go over the things that he needs to go over on some different schedules.
Good evening, everybody. I've already got your audits open, so if you don't mind, turn to page 2. We've issued an unmodified opinion on y'all's report this year, which is the best opinion you can receive. So I'll read that bottom paragraph to you. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of Poth Independent School District as of August 31, 2019, and the respective changes in financial position for the year that ended in accordance with the county principles generally accepted in the United States of America. This is our opinion. It's unmodified. If you look out, turn to page 12, Exhibit A1. This is your statement of net position of your government-wide financial statements. Your total assets to end the year was $26.5 million. You had deferred outflows of $1.5 million, liabilities of $22.8 million, deferred inflows of resources of $1.1 million, leaving a total net position of $3,976,720. That's not your fund balance, that's just your net position for the government-wide activities. Exhibit B1, page 13, your statement of activities for the government-wide presentation. Total expenses for the institute was $10,725,000. Those are offset by two types of program revenues. The first being charged for services of $298,000. Operating grants and contributions contributed $1,137,805. And go down towards the bottom, we have total general revenues, which includes your taxes and your state money of $9,037,000. So you had a decrease in net position for the year of $251,000. Began at 4.2, come back to $2,976,000. So those are your two government-wide financial statements. Those have your capital assets, your debt, everything like that reflected. Beginning on page 14, Exhibit C1, these are your fund financials. This is how school districts in Texas actually keep the books on a day-to-day basis. I'll focus only on the general fund for you. Your general fund ended with total assets of $4,378,000. You have total liabilities of $502,000 in that fund, and deferred inflows of resources $377,900. Drop down towards the bottom there, your total fund balance is $3,497,000. That balances out your liabilities and fund balance is $4,378,085. Page 16, exhibit C2. This is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes of fund balances for your governmental funds. Again, I'll only focus on the general fund for you. Your total revenues for the year is $8,095,123, offset by expenditures of $8,365,614. You then have a transfer out of $7,892. When you get back to the net change of fund balance, Ms. Johnson referred to $278,383. You began the year to be $776. You ended up with $3,497,891 of general fund balance. Does anybody have any questions?
That's the fund balance number that y'all asked about. That one right there, just under 3.5, which is about 5 months operating.
Questions? Very good.
All right, good deal. Thanks for having us here. Thank the ladies from the business office for being so ready for us and putting up with us as we do the audit process and have another good year. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Jim. So a couple of things before we get into the action item, just to recap. She did say, Mrs. Johnson did say that we were in a $200,000 deficit or so last year, and did say it was a good thing. So I just wanted to follow up on that. It was expected.
Yes.
It wasn't unexpected, and it wasn't a mismanagement of money, but
Right.
those
It was
two
better
things
than
did be said.
budgeted.
Correct.
Sorry.
This year's budget is not in a deficit.
Correct.
All right, goes to the board. Is there a recommendation? Is there any other discussion that you need before recommendation? Recommendation going from you?
Just to approve the 2018-19 audit report as presented accept the 2018-19 financial audit report as presented.
Okay. It goes to the board. It's open for the board for discussion or any questions. We didn't ask any questions when he was up here, so I'm assuming there aren't any. If there aren't any, if there's no discussion, action is open for a motion.
I move to accept the 2018-2019 financial audit as presented.
That one seconded. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, that motion carries 7-0. The final action item is to discuss and consider the approval of the Poth ISD transfer agreement. Okay, this was a little background. This was on the agenda in a modified form last month. Not all board members were present. Mr. Banzik was out of the state, out of town, so she wasn't here. Side note, if I'd have known that not every board member was going to be here on an item like this, it probably wouldn't have hit the agenda last month either. Doesn't matter. I would like everybody here for that, so I appreciate everybody for being here this evening. So last month, I don't think it was rolled out as well as it could and presented as to why it was an action item, and that's nobody's fault other than mine for not contacting the board prior to, not letting the discussion happen as to why it was on my mind. It was my addition to the agenda last month. It wasn't the administration's agenda, although they did agree with it. Okay, so because it kind of popped up, it set some frustration out there to some board members, and the frustration was their words, not mine. When I realized that conversation was going to be unproductive, one, and two, that we didn't have everybody here to be a part of it, there was no action taken because there was no motion made. The notes were taken from that conversation and from that discussion last month, which included all the administration. Took that back to Mrs. Rankin. I had heard from enough board members after the last meeting that it should be presented again this month. So here it is. And what this is a considering of the transfer agreement for the district. Okay, so as most are aware, During the end of the last school year, the board had a conversation. It was a closed session conversation. We came out of that closed session. We didn't take any action items. It wasn't something that we all voted on, but it was a directive that we gave to Mrs. Rankin that at that time we needed to close to any new transfers, which we did and which we have done since. Okay? That was what month? May? June? That was June. That was right at the end of the last school year. So coming into this school year, no new transfers have been allowed or accepted. Probably, I don't know if you take their and file their applications or not to keep record of them, but they haven't been allowed. Nothing has happened to policy or any discussions about policy since that directive. Okay, so take us to what happened last month and the discussions that were there, bringing us to this month. It's another discussion that's opened up. It's an action item should we want to take action, and that is concerning the transfer agreement and that we have an agreement. Either we do or we don't, what that agreement says, and what stipulations we want in it as a board. Not pertaining necessarily to the 1920 school year, but to the school years moving forward. What do we want as a district in the future? Not with the transfers that we have here, or the transfers that we may want or may not want in the future. It's not a specific year or a specific group, but overall general policy. What does the district want? What does this board want to make policy for the district? Okay. So that brings us to the present. Who's presenting? You talking about what we want to talk about? So we'll start to lay out the points for this. I'll open it up to the board. This is a board conversation only. The public had a chance to talk in the public comments. If you do have a point that you think is worthy, I have in the past with other items taken those, but I don't have to. So if you're out there and you want to make a point and you think it's something that either we're getting wrong or that we don't know, raise your hand. You may get called on, you may not, but keep in mind this is a discussion for the Board of Trustees and the superintendent. Okay, with that in mind, it's open for the board. What we talked about last month was, now correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Deaver and Mrs. Rankin. We started with Mr. Deaver talking about specific spots in the high school that the transfer process wanted to be opened up with, and I had a conversation with Mrs. Kirby, and I'm going to try to get these right because that conversation we agreed on 3 points that we wanted to always keep in the back of our mind when we're talking about transfers, being it district-wide or any of the 3 campuses specifically. That number one, that they went through an application process that was stringent. Okay? That's an opinion on to how stringent it is, but we want the more teeth, the better, to protect what we have, the culture, the learning environment that we already have in Poth. Number one. Number two is that that application and those requirements are being held to, that the administration or whoever's in charge at the school make sure that once they are in, that they are compliant and not a nuisance or not whatever other descriptive word to the learning environment or to the atmosphere here at Poth ISD. So stringent rules and then the compliance of those rules continually. Number three, that it doesn't affect the other classrooms or numbers or student-to-teacher ratios that we'll start to talk about here, I believe, in some of this packet. Okay? So just because we get more students, we want the right students, we want conducive to the learning environment and to the Poth culture, if you will, and we don't want to affect to where we're overloading teachers. And that goes into the point where you may not be overloading now, but if you let a transfer in this one class and you have 6 move-ins to the district that you have to take, well now you haven't allowed enough room for expansion in the classroom. Okay, so that goes to so those 3 items. With those in mind, and Ms. Kirby and I talked about that this morning, because she brought up those points in that conversation, and I agreed with those 100%. With that in mind, Mr. Deaver talked last month about we have some teachers at the high school, some classes at the high school that are way underutilized, I guess. There's way too few students, if there's such thing, right? I don't know what the numbers are on that. With that being in mind, if we could open it up to transfer students that met those 3 requirements that I laid out prior to, and any other ones that the board wants to talk about or add or agree on, doesn't have to be just those three. That we might as well, if it doesn't cost us any money, maybe that's number 4, it doesn't cost us any more money to hire teachers, to build buildings, to house these and teach these kids, that why not open it up if the ratios allow it? It's high school, so they're not going to be in there for 2 or 3 or 4 years. It's not a burden that we're taking on that long. That's how the conversation started. It went elsewhere from that. So I'll pick up there where we started last time with the reason that we started last month with opening up the initial wanting to open up the transfer office.
Correct. And we, as a leadership team, listened to the board's concerns and went back and met. So to address the application process that is stringent, we believe the process works as it has been set out, but we did hear you. So what you have is a draft student transfer agreement. And what we did, we pulled from schools that are successful schools that are similar to us in makeup, and looked at what their agreement says and took parts from our agreement. And we also talked about, as administrators, as department leaders, where we have areas of concern. So when you look at the draft, you can see the language, and I gave the board a printed copy of these and also our current agreement, so you can kind of see the different language. We wanted to come out right up front and let people know we're serious about, if you come here, we have expectations and guidelines that you will be called to adhere to. And so you can see that as the agreement works through. Talks about campus policies, rules, regulations, including but not limited to student conduct, attendance, testing requirements, and parental involvement. Then we get into the district resources, which Mr. Miller talked about and had brought up in number 3. Doesn't impact student-teacher ratios. What we're looking at now in the district, and my belief as superintendent and working with my campus administrators, the elementary and the junior high are full. Those student ratios are where they need to be while still having a good student-teacher ratio. We've left that room at the top where if we have move-ins, there are places for them. So what we would be looking at is if we continue with the transfer process for 2020, we're going to send 10 fifth graders on to 6th grade. So you've got all the classes moving up. Kindergarten this year only had 4 transfers. And out of those, 1 is a staff member child, the other 3 are non-staff. So we can look at the overall size of classes, and we don't want to go over 80. And you can see right now in pre-K, we're sitting at 20, kinder 74, so that one is a large class. And in kinder, we have a total of 4 transfers. First grade, we have a total enrollment 65 with 7 transfers. Second grade, 74, 7 transfers. Third grade, 67, 9 transfers. Fourth grade, 53, 7 transfers. And our big class, 5th grade, 71 students, with 10 of those being transfers. Now, with the current agreement we have in place, the administrators are continually monitoring the transfer students, their performance, not only in academics, but what they're doing with attendance-wise. Are they here? They're having meetings with them, discipline. And I went back through and looked at what has happened through the first semester of this year, discipline at the elementary, you're not having to deal with it. We have good classroom teachers that are able to monitor that, work through it with some of their own types of consequences, whether it be detentions, early morning tutorials, those type of things. Grade-wise, Mrs. Brish, with you calculating first, second, and more than halfway through third 6 weeks, everyone on target?
Yes.
Okay.
That's in shape.
So it is a process that we use there that we will continue with this new agreement. Yes.
How did you determine the maximum capacity at 80? I've only known the largest class to graduate from Poth in 77, so I'm just wondering how y'all determined that number at capping it off at 80.
80's been on the transfer agreement for grades 6 through 12 since well before I was here. And I think if you look at recommended class sizes at the upper grades, and that, I think that's pretty average. I mean, if you were to look at that. But I will say, since I've been here, that 80's been there for the upper grades.
And with that number, I pulled our school report card from 17-18. And when you look at Poth Elementary, for the campus, the class size averages at the elementary, kindergarten's running 19. The state average is 18.7, so we're right on target there. Grade 1 was 20.5, grade 2, 14. That's that small class that now at 4th grade, I believe. And 3rd grade was 23, 4th, 22, 5th, 23. So you can see those larger groups that have come in, that have grown with move-ins at the elementary. That's why we were going to that 4th teacher, adding that section, so that we can keep the student-teacher ratio down to where we would like it to be. We're going to probably be around, what, 18?
And there will be 18.
18 to 1.
First grade is 17, and second grade is at 18.
Is that with that? With the fourth?
That's with the 4th teacher.
Wow.
That's with the 4th teacher.
Thank God.
We're sitting at 24 and 25 in those classes right now. It's crazy.
So for the 6 through 12, the 80 is where we stop taking transfers, and you feel like that still allows for enough room for move-ins? So we could technically go over 80 with move-ins if we're capping it at 80 for transfers.
You could, but then you get into the part of the agreement that protects the district in the event that happens, that a transfer approval is only for that current year. Of course, we've had some kids that have been here, and we hope they continue to be here through their whole career. But that is in the agreement. If we start getting to where we're at, then we have to look at removing transfers to make room for district children.
So while we're on that page, I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but who picks and how do they pick? Well, which transfer doesn't make that grade the next year?
If we had to start removing,
Yeah, I mean, if you get to that scenario where you're over 80 because of move-ins, and now you're over 80 and you have transfers more than one,
it would be a difficult
I mean, so
task, but what we would look at are the requirements. Lay those students out side by side and look at, yes, it would not be a pleasant task.
yeah, that'd be hard.
And
Okay, keep going on the other points. I didn't want to get too far down there.
when we look at facilities, of course, as we talked about, we want to make sure we continue to have facilities without having to go out and build more to accommodate. Attendance, we monitor absences, and in this, you can see it's very detailed about the role of the principal and what they will be doing with the student and with the parent to make sure everyone is informed and that they're adhering to the guidelines. Same goes for tardies. Tardies at elementary, junior high are really not that big an issue. It's when you get to high school that we've got to make sure the kids are getting where they need to be and that tardies don't start to be an impact on teaching. Then we added the part about pickup because when we have kids that live in town or in the district, majority are either picked up right away or they're on the buses and they're gone. And we know there can be times if someone is having to drive and come in for a student, they could be late. But they've done a good job of calling in, letting principals and teachers know if there's going to be a concern. But we wanted this in there in the event someone started to take advantage of. You know, teachers are around to 4:30 or so. If I can get there sometime within that range, I'd be fine. So we're making sure we stick to our schedule. Academic progress. This again is monitored by the principals and myself to make sure that students are where they need to be. Where we made it a little more stringent, you can see down here toward the bottom, all transfer students are expected to progressively move toward college and career readiness because that, when you get to high school, junior high and high school, and you're moving out, those are indicators that we as a district are held accountable to. Students at the 9 through 12 level are expected to complete at least 3 to 12 college hours, complete 1 or more AP classes, and progress towards the highest graduation plan. So yes, we do have high expectations for these students, just as we do all of our kids. Mr. Deaver at the high school, the expectation is we want those kids taking those higher level classes currently. So this is not a change, but we're just putting it into writing the expectation here. All students are expected to participate in at least one extracurricular activity. And when I did my analysis, since we left the last board meeting, of the 35 high school transfers, every one of them is involved in extracurricular already. So these are kids that are truly ingrained and part of the Poth community, the Poth culture. So that is one more way that we're putting it into writing what our expectation is. We also want students to complete community service hours. We're looking at 10. Most of our clubs, whether it be student council, honor society, I know a lot of the clubs ask for community service regardless. You're looking for scholarships as you're going through your high school career. You need to be accumulating these hours anyway. So this way we're going to put it as part of what you need to do. And then, of course, we have the state assessment. And that's where we're looking at changing the process of application, and our testing coordinator and accountability person, Mr. Wadsworth, will be part of that committee. He will continue to monitor kids that are here as they test, can look at and provide important information as we review and assess not only kids that are here, but new kids that are coming in. So he would sit on that acceptance and interview committee, along with the principal and the counselor. Counselor is there not only to look at the child as a whole, but also, especially when you get to junior high and high school, the course loads. Where can we bring kids in that will not impact the number 3 point, which was student-teacher ratio. Where do we have that flexibility with those kids? The parent-guardian support, we beefed this one up quite a bit because we do believe it is a good opportunity for the school and the parents to build that relationship. I will say that from my vantage point as superintendent, looking at what happens at campuses, I see our transfer parents heavily involved. So this, once again, just like putting it in writing for the students, this is for the parents to let you know, if we're going to have your child here, we're going to be partners in what we can do together. Mr. Wadsworth has a lot of experience with this in his former district at Pawnee, how they work the parental support in the different ways that if you can't give them your time, how can you give some resources and things that would help out? You want to give a couple of examples?
Yes, ma'am. We had plenty of opportunities during the year for parents to come in and volunteer. We had the Watchdog program also in Pawnee that we started up there, so we've got a lot of dads in that way. We had field days, concession stands, all the same things that we do here that provide opportunities for parents to get in and help out with the school, decorating for Christmas, things of that nature. And then we had some that absolutely couldn't do it, but we had dads come up and mow our lawns. We had trees that fell, and dads came up and chopped up and hauled off for us. And then those that absolutely couldn't get by, they brought stuff to the concession stand. So they brought bottles of water. They brought, and we're doing end-of-course tests right now at the high school. They brought up snacks for all the kids and stuff during that. So there were multiple opportunities for parents to get involved, to stay involved, and also to interact with their students on campus.
So that's what we're looking at in that section. Then we go through and talking about how, and it's the same as in the current agreement, if a transfer relationship has to be terminated, what we would do there. It has everything spelled out of being truthful when you apply and come in, and what would happen if you chose not to be truthful. It's the tuition section. We currently do not charge tuition, but it does have in there, which is in the old agreement as well as this new one, if the district chose to start charging tuition, how they would be notified, and that it wouldn't be sprung on someone when they're in the middle of the year, or it's August and we let you know. We would have to do planning to make sure parents know that tuition is going to be applied. Parents do have a right to appeal the process if their child is, their transfership is revoked. As I stated earlier, just like in the current agreement, it's for 1 year. Every year, every child, staff children and non-staff children that apply have to put in a new application. And then you can see we're doing it a little bit different. Got to make sure that the children are involved and to let them know we want them here. We have high expectations, and when they sign on, they know that we're going into this. This is going to be a partnership together. Any questions about the revised agreement from the board? Anyone from my leadership team? We met as a team and spent about 3 hours going through. Anyone want to add anything that wasn't covered? The second document I gave you has to do with the actual application process. And for those of you parents that are here that are transfer parents, this looks a little different. This is in no way the final form, but we were just looking at gathering some more information so that we can make the best decision possible. So here's all of the demographic things we would need. Then we get into the academics, and you look at all the things that have been in place before when we look at a student. Are they on grade level? Are they having issues that would in turn cause us to have to expend more of our resources than we would be? So we're covering all of that. Want to look at the child, all the programs they would be in. We want information just as they provide now. Where are they coming from? Where have they been? Attendance is a huge one, not only because of the learning impact on the students, they need to be here to learn, but also every day that they're enrolled and not here, it hits us financially. So that has to be considered. Discipline information, we want our teachers to be able to teach. And we need kids that are willing to come in and follow our guidelines, follow our expectations in classroom rules. This list, the information we would like to gather from the parents and the student. And then one of the new parts that we would like to implement, because as you talked about, we want to make it stringent. We want to make sure we're getting kids in that will continue to make us both proud and do what needs to be done. So we would have some questions. It would be a face-to-face interview. The student with the principal, the counselor, Mr. Wadsworth, and Director of Student Operations, Mr. Zwicky. Talk with the student, find out about them, which we like because before everything's been on paper. And I'm sure there are times when there have been really good kids that on paper haven't come across as really good kids. And we've probably missed out on some opportunities there. So being able, and it's an expectation, you know, that we have here at Poth, the kids to be able to converse and talk with adults. So have that opportunity for that student to get in front of this panel and talk about themselves and what they want to do, why they want to be here. And then do the same for the parents, because it is that partnership. And there's a commitment from the parents to begin with to want to bring their child to a district they do not reside in. And so that opportunity also to talk about why Poth, why here, and be able to build that relationship and hear it up front from the principal and the staff, what the expectations are. So that, rather than Ms. Kroll talking through how's it currently doing if someone turns in an application.
It's a conversation, not this. I mean, I like the questions where you get very more structured. My experience over the years has been that if a parent comes in, a lot of times what they're going to do is they're going to give you, they're selling their child, basically. This is what my child does. This is what they do. We want to come to Poth because I always love that why Poth question. It tells a lot. It's on my way to Kennedy. I have a brother in Kennedy and I live south of San Antonio. It's usually not that. It usually has something to do with our academics. Not usually, it always has something to do with our academics. I don't think I've ever had a parent say otherwise. And we want expectations for our children, is usually what I hear. High expectations, and that's not what we're receiving where we're at. And you hear wonderful things, and you have to go on and on to write a book.
So this process we're presenting to you, we feel like does, and I just heard these three things today, that it makes the process more stringent. It's going to require that administrators are holding to the agreement, and that it doesn't impact the student-teacher ratio, that we're honoring and looking at not only what we have currently, but what we might get within the year. And then the fourth one, that it doesn't increase our cost. I did a little bit of digging on our current transfers. Just some overview. At elementary, we have 44 transfer students out of 425. transfer student attendance rate is 95.5. 81% of transfers are involved in a club or UIL, and the reason that one is down low because kinder and first don't get a lot of opportunities like they do starting in second grade not to be in some of our clubs. There have been no discipline referrals to the principal on a transfer student. We have academic grades. Of those 44 transfer students, 23 currently have A's or A pluses, 17 have B's or B pluses, and of the 4 kinder, they're all in satisfactory academic positions. At the junior high, we have 37 transfer students out of 207. Their attendance rate is 95%. 95% of those 37 students are involved in a club, in UIL, or in some extracurricular event. For the year, the only principal discipline that's had to be administered is 2 detentions. In the academic grades of those 37, 20 have A's or A pluses, and 17 have B's or B pluses. And you know that our requirement is a 75. So these students are maintaining at least 5 points above what our minimum requirement is. And at high school, 35 out of 228 kids are transfers. Their attendance rate is 96.1. 100% of the transfer students at the high school are involved in a club, UIL, or extracurricular. The only principal assigned discipline this year for transfer students at the high school is 3 days of ISS. And for academic grades, we have 23 of those 35 have A or A plus cumulative averages, and 12 have B or B plus. None of those students have fallen into the C range for us when we're looking through 3-6 weeks. So the process is working. We do have one case we're working on where a transfership will be revoked at the end of this semester. And it was not, you see, it was not grades. This grading guideline was met, but it was one of those other requirements that the kids are expected to adhere to and live up to. So when I look at all of this, our transfer students, in my opinion, are an asset to our district. When we start looking at what brought us to this conversation of being able to look for some more transfer students was the availability of class space at the high school. When you look at the overall high school, the enrollment's 228 students. There are 14 transfer students in the 12th grade. That's our largest group, next to 7th grade in the district. So we have a lot of kids there. The reason we can look at offering some spots at the high school is because, as you know, when you offer a wide range of courses, that means you've got more staff, you've got more places where kids can go. So at this point, if it's okay with you, I'm going to have Ms. Johnson talk about the information she put together for us.
You have this as on board, and I also passed out a hard copy because it was attached late. I was asked to just provide some financial information on our transfer note. So this was, as of the latest data that I had, that was November 13th. So I just broke it down by total number of transfer students, how many are staff, children, and how many are non-staff for each grade level. Off to the right, you see classroom teachers and student-to-teacher ratio. I'm going to touch on that just kind of briefly because that's getting out of my domain. I started down that path because in a minute I'm going to talk to you about when you start talking taxes, if we were to ever, for whatever reason, decide to try to go out for a tax rate increase over what our rollback rate is, the Legislative Budget Board will require an efficiency audit. The rules behind that efficiency audit are due out, this is new under House Bill 3, so they're due out this month or next month. They have not been released as of today. Several districts are waiting on that information, but your auditors are supposed to conduct an efficiency audit. So in my mind, I'm like, what would an efficiency audit look like? And to me, it starts with, are you overstaffed? I mean, that would, to me, be a reasonable, the school district's budget is mostly salaries, and so that, to me, would be a reasonable place to start. So that's where I went with that, and that's kind of as far as I got into it. When I did look at the teacher, I just ran a report out of our HR program and got a teacher listing, which I've also provided to you. The shaded names are the ones that I excluded because I didn't feel like, and again, this is just your business manager talking program, but I didn't feel like they could be counted in, like if you had, 80 sixth graders to split up in first period, those, like your PE teacher may not be able to be included in that count because they have PE only one period out of the day, and that's later in the day. So I excluded, at elementary, I excluded, well actually for all of them, I excluded lids in special education because they deal with special pots and not your general classroom population. I excluded any specialists that might be on that campus, behavior specialist, reading specialist, that kind of thing. And then I did exclude like your rotations types things, like PE, music, and then the high school band, which may not be fair because Mr. Lee does have some other like he has a guitar class, or he has some other opportunities. But without getting into each student schedule, I just blanketed it and excluded those. So you can see the staff counts at each campus. That 22 does include the 3 new hires, or 3 new potential hires that are coming. So the 22 does include the 4 teachers at kinder, 4 teachers at first, and 4 teachers at second grade. So that's kind of that first page. On the back, I just copied that one row so you can keep those numbers in mind. Total enrollment, total number of transfers. This was a working document. It wasn't really intended for board presentation, so it's not clean, but then it's staff students and then non-staff students. Estimated revenue, basic allotments, so this is just a minimum, is listed below each one of those. For the 116 transfer students, we get about $714,000, that's just at the basic allotment. And then you can see the revenue generated by, that's broken down into staff transfers and then non-staff transfers.
So this 227 is staff.
Right, and the 486, 640 would be for the 79 non-staff. Right below that, and at one point I was asked, okay, or I think it was brought up in the last board meeting about a potential tax increase to offset, or to generate that revenue. So that's what's listed below it. It would take an extra 23 cents out of every $100 value, roughly, to generate that $714,000. It would take an extra 7 cents to generate the just under $228,000, and it would take an extra 15 cents to generate that $486,000. There's my little note about the efficiency audit, effective January. All districts, if you're going to go above your, it's no longer called your rollback rate, it's called your voter approval rate. You will have to go through an efficiency audit. We don't know what that looks like yet. So you have to select your auditor. I talked to Michael Kishnick, just in conversation when they were out. They don't know what that looks like. They're curious what that would look like, and they don't know if your actual auditor that you have come prepare your AFR, your financial report, would be allowed to be that auditor. There's a lot of questions. And then there are some other rules now. If you are going to increase taxes, it has to be on the uniform election date. It used to not have that rule, but now it does have to be that. So just for our district, that means we have to man 3 different locations. That's just something to think about. Those are things that cross my mind when I'm thinking about elections. Right below that, this is how it impacts our taxpayers. From our, I talked to Jenny Caldway, the chief appraiser, and this is on our tax roll. Our average taxable value, this is including any of the average exemptions, is just under $108,000. So I broke down what the average taxes paid in our district are based on M&O and INS. INS, we set that tax rate to pay our debt service. That's it. So when we're talking about any Changes in taxes, that's on the M&O side. The INS taxes are set every year to make the debt payments for that year, based on our certified appraisal values. So then right below that in the table, $100,000 is an easy increment to think about. And so in blue, I broke down those tax increases, that 23 cents, to go back up to generate the total revenue that 116 transfer students bring in. So that those are the potential tax impacts at a $100,000 taxable value. And then I went ahead and also included what that would look like on Poth ISD's average taxable value.
If we lost them all at once.
Yes, sir. Yes. No, it's just a revenue generation. Yes. When we pause to create that revenue. So this is very nuts and bolts. Too many working parts to get into the details of all of it. That was just an information request, or I picked up on some things that y'all were talking about at the last meeting.
And as Ms. Johnson said, the minimum that each one of these transfer students, each one of our kids in the district bring in is $6,160. But as they belong to different programs, take different classes as they now in junior high can take CTE and high school, they can generate considerably more than that base revenue that they bring with them.
That number is true for all students, right?
The 6160?
Yes. Right, the state gives even in-district children,
Yes.
our schools, 6160.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yes.
What were you saying?
In the last meeting, you mentioned that the CTE program wasn't bringing in as much revenue as we had anticipated. Is that true? Is there a number you can put on that?
No, I don't recall that.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It brings in 1.35 of your
Weighted.
your weighted ATM. Yes. So we're I have.
So that hasn't changed, because in the last meeting, I thought, I know, I heard that you said that dynamic had changed, that formula for receiving money from the CTE
It's
program.
increased because 7th and 8th graders
It's
are.
increased.
Yeah, 7th and 8th graders can now take CTE classes. So our high school enrollment for CTE is at like 88.7 full-time equivalents. And when you include junior high brings in an extra 3 FTEs, but it brings in an additional 50.
Any questions, other questions for Ms. Johnson?
Thank you for putting that together. Okay, here, printing it off. When I asked about 4 o'clock. My phone wasn't working from 3 o'clock. And Mr. Cantu had asked for most of that information, so that's where that came from.
Well, I've given you the information I have, the process we went through to arrive at this agreement, and how we as a leadership team stand behind what we're currently doing, but we're also on board if the board feels it needs to be restructured and have some areas covered more thoroughly in the application process, how it can work and how it can be a win-win for the school and for the student.
So I'll move it to the board conversation and present it starting out this way. Is there anybody that doesn't feel that it's been presented the way in the way that's been presented? Does anybody feel that this is not a good deal or this could be a better deal for the district?
I'd have to ask a different question before I can think about answering that. We decided in September to do away with transfer, really going forward, not deal with this, not get rid of any current transfers, and to keep staff transfers on board. And so what happened between November and September that you think would compel me or the rest of us to change our minds about that decision?
Couple things. I don't remember it being September. I remember it being June. If it's September, it doesn't matter.
I thought it was.
We talked about it once, June, and then it was either late August or September.
In open session or closed?
Closed.
Okay, so both of those were closed. So closed session, you can't dictate policy and you can't do anything. So if we're officially making policy, then something needs to be done in open session. That's one. Number two is, because I'd hate to be a part of the board that did everything in closed session, didn't come out and make anything as part of the open record, and go, man, these cats over here just go in this room, lock the door, and then they come out of here, stuff happens.
We did come back out and talk about it and say that, you know, the transfers were
Right, we had to,
it wasn't all secret. We said it right here in this room.
correct, but we didn't say everything because closed session discussions can't come out for those reasons. So, and that not being an action item, that came up. That wasn't one of those under one of the other criteria. We didn't go to closed session for that. So that's another issue. That's probably another legal issue. None of that matters tonight. The reason it brought up in September or whatever is it needs to be part of open board policy if we're going to do that. We need to have this discussion. And then number two, like I said, November and in October, is Mrs. Johnson had brought up, at that time, she had told me that there was $1 million that the transfer, that was attributed to the transfer. To me, that's significant. To me, with Anthony, Dawn being on the board, for the last 5 years, they've been at a deficit like we were last year. $1 million and an $8 million budget is significant. Let's talk about it. We hadn't talked about it in open session. So for those two reasons, that's why I put it back out. It's discussion. It's not, if it gets voted down 7-0, it gets voted down 7-0, but the discussion needs to happen.
Well, but it wasn't $1 million. So I kind of wonder why it was exaggerated.
You have to ask that to Mrs. Johnson, not to me.
Yeah, it was an open forum conversation. I didn't run numbers. It was, and they're 1/8 of our student population. Our budget at the time was $8 million. They're about $1 million. It wasn't like it wasn't, I didn't go back and research. It was just a question in the middle of a board meeting, and that just made sense to me. They're about $1 million if they're 1/8 of our student population, and we have about an $8 million budget.
But in actuality, if we got rid of all our transfers, not including staff, it would be less than $500,000. In this next year, we're going to lose $172,480. So
This is
when I
now.
hear million, and then I look and see, actually more like
It was
$172,480.
a general conversation. I wasn't trying to be misleading to you. It was a question that was asked me in the middle of a board meeting, and I explained that meeting.
I disagree with you at all. But Les walked around saying this several times.
Walked
And
around?
That's why. Yeah, I walked around, like when we were walking back from closed session here, there goes $1 million.
Well, I didn't say there goes $1 million. We hadn't changed policy. So the $1 million did leave. We didn't ungrandfather everybody to lose $1 million. Okay. Again, I don't want to get into an argument with you and I. It's not pertinent to the conversation that can help everybody make a decision. Okay. The truth, the fact of the matter is that you've just been presented numbers. Those aren't $1 million. So if I led you in the wrong direction, I apologize. It doesn't affect what's happening tonight. It's not $1 million. Okay. But to correct you, yes, we're allowing staff because we haven't made any policy. That's what we said in closed session. We came out and said we'll still allow staff transfers, but they're still transfers. So that's still transfer money. Those are just transfers that maybe we collectively like, as opposed to the ones that we don't, because those don't have teacher kids here, but they're still transfers. So it's still $750,000 or whatever the chart says.
If we got rid of them all.
If we got rid of them all.
No, we're not going to do that. We've already discussed
Well,
it.
we need to say that. I don't know what the policy is, and I've been to every meeting.
This is why I love the word frustration. Because when we made this conversation, closed session, and collectively closed session came to the agreement to do something with the transfers, did we not? Correct?
Right.
It was not because of the current transfers that were occurring. It was just, we felt collectively as a board that it was getting a little excessive with the amount of students that were currently enrolled. Because we looked at last year's pre-K class, that was a very large class. We knew it was going to be pretty big coming into kindergarten based on the advanced, enrollment that was coming through your roundup. So we happy with the kids we've got here. This is great. If there's any siblings hanging out there that are attached to these kids, we're not going to separate families, right? Correct? We were very adamant about that. Let the kids come back. Fabulous. We did agree that we needed to look at our transfer policy a little bit more in depth. Correct? Right? Okay. So with that being said, I myself had private conversation with Mr. Zwicky and things of that nature about my input. Talked to Mrs. Rankin, talked to other board members about it, about things we could do to help our transfer policy become more strict, more stringent. I think y'all did a fabulous job with your draft, so thank you for all your hard work, leadership teams. It was great. Pretty much no questions on those. The knowingly presenting false information on the transfer application, that was interesting because I know that came up when we started to investigate last year and actually asked for proof of residency. I know there were some issues with that. I did have some questions on the students family required to donate the hours. If they're not completed, will they be denied? Or will we give them a grace period? How long of a grace period? That's something you might want to add as an addendum to that section. Just saying. I mean, because they can be like, well, I'll get you, and it's July, so what are you going to do? Mow the grass, I guess? Maybe, I don't know. Let's get to July. We don't have pool. Can't do pool. So, just saying. The thing is, this is a great, great transfer agreement. I think it's rock solid. I love it. I think we need something in place so our current transfer students that are out there, whether they be staff, non-staff, because they need one for this coming school year, correct? For the application for the coming year, correct? So that's why we need to approve this, right? Or not approve 1920. No, is it for 1920 or 2021? Because they're already under the current agreement for 1920. And they've already been approved. So that's already been put to bed unless they violate it in some way, correct? And the action has to be taken. So they're covered with grandfathered in, I should say, under the past agreement. So if we approve this said new agreements tonight, or not, take action, don't take action. I wasn't campus prior to the meeting. I'm just curious, does this mean that we're opening enrollment once we approve this?
That's what this talk needs to be. There's several factors to this talk. That's one of them.
Okay. That's where my frustration at the last board meeting came into. Because I'm all for ratifying and approving a transfer agreement as presented for the upcoming school year. What I had a major problem with was the allowing 10 students into the high school and opening enrollment just for the high school. Because I felt and still feel that it's not a financial windfall that our district necessarily needs. And it makes us look very, I don't know, like we stand on shifting sand. Well, elementary and junior high are closed, but no, and let's just say hypothetically if that high school student came in, that they have siblings that are in junior high and elementary, will we allow that? Because we prior said, hey, if you've got siblings that are younger, you can come in. Those were my questions. And that's why I was very frustrated, and I do speak very loudly. So I wasn't angry, I was just very frustrated because I'm like, I have never, ever, ever said anything toward the transfers. Nor do I think that the transfers we have currently enrolled, which I spoke on last meeting, or anything detrimental to our district. That's ridiculous. What I am having a problem with is we collectively as the board said, hey, can we just wait for like a while and just kind of stop the transfer tide and just kind of see where we sit as a district and roll financially? I know we always like to predict and save and, we got to, but a lot of, Jennifer, your stuff is all variables, is from what I'm hearing. It's based on what Austin says, and as we know, Austin likes to yo-yo us around on the reg. Even their new house bill, we don't know. We never know. It's always fun to hear your report because it's like, well, it's like, maybe, maybe not, I don't know. So I just came back from Vegas, so that's what it reminded us. Like, will this penny slot land on all cherries, or maybe not, I don't know. So I based on variables. But I did do a little recon of my own after last month's meeting, and I just went to our tax roll, which is totally legal, right? Anybody can access that information at day to day. And I just did a little projected stuff. So I took about 10 different residences that I know are currently enrolled transfer students, okay? And I'm just putting them, I actually have enough copies for everyone. I'm gonna pass these down here. Did I have it on? Great. Okay, so these are residences of transfer students, so you can see when I look at it. So this is all from J. Cole by tax, final as well, on a personal level. We show terms. Anyways,
I didn't get to it. Get to the point.
the point is right in front of you.
Well, let's go.
So it's based on one student per household. Now you're talking your transfer students that are actually homes that are attached to those transfer students. I based it off the Parkview subdivision, which is where most likely if people are going to move into Poth, that's where they're probably going to build or buy a home on one of those lots or purchase a home. So as you can see, those are the ISD taxes collected for those, and those residences up top, to be fair, those are FISD, Pleasanton ISD, and Ball Index that those homes are residing in, and those are the tax revenues that they bring in for those other ISDs, not codes, which we see none of that. So, I'm just going off of my numbers. And we get 36.5% more income per in-district kid based off of those numbers. And those are just one-child residences, because I know some of those residences we educate multiple children in those households. What I'm concerned about is Poth typically has, based on our demographics, more have-nots than haves. Okay? The have-nots, their residences do not bring in the revenue of, let's say, an ISD revenue of $3,132.82. Their average revenue is somewhere between $400 to $800. That can be an average home in Poth. What our state does is they give us that 6160. It's basically a subsidy. We say, we know your tax roll is not going to cover every kid in your district, because it takes approximately about $10,000 to educate a student a year, roughly $10,000. So that 6,160 is just a bare minimum. We got to come up somewhere with some $4,000 in addition to that 6,100, correct, per student? Are y'all on that? So, when I speak to all different types of people, because y'all all know I have a big mouth, known as the mouth. I talk to the haves and have-nots and the in-betweens, and my reach is far. It just doesn't extend to Poth, but I have friends on the Forestville School Board and all kinds of places. So I'm just very, very curious to see when my tax roll, because I know how much my taxes are, you can look them up, they're out there. I know they're going to cover my kids, and in addition, they're going to also help other children in Poth who might not be bringing the tax dollars that my homestead brings in. And I'm not saying that the monies that the transfer students are bringing in are not needed or appreciated, and that we will eventually not require them, because that's never been the issue. We just collectively said as a board, we kind of have an issue, we need to step back and take a look. We're happy with what we got, let's vet those kids, let's look at the situation. We found some discrepancies. Somebody was claiming a home that they don't even live in, you know, and I was getting calls from all kinds of people ratting each other out. I mean, it was a free-for-all, it was crazy now. And I was very upset and disturbed by this. I'm like, dude, I didn't think it's simple, like, we need to evaluate this and turn into this. It was a little nutso last spring. I guess I signed up for that when I ran for board. So with that being said, I'm advocating on behalf of the current transfers, the staff kids, and the district kids that are currently enrolled at Poth ISD. Because I love those kids. That's who I'm here for. The staff, students, staff of Poth ISD. We just said, hey, let's get this plan in place. Let's make it great moving forward. Go 2020-2021 school year. Rock and roll. This is the new deal. Fill out your paperwork and we'll check you out. See you next year. Or not. I don't know. But that's not what happened last year. We wanted to open enrollment to 10 students in the high school. And that to me just didn't sit right with me. And that's where the issue came. But then because of that issue, I decided to take a hard look at my numbers. And I'm looking at them and I'm really starting to evaluate what does 6160 mean per student? What does our average tax base bring in? And what I know transfer students who live elsewhere, what are those other districts that we are not? Because if that's the case, I think everybody wants to be Poth proud. But what do district lines really mean at that point? I don't understand. Why do we need district lines?
So the shifting sands part of it is to answer that is the reason that they did the work to embolden and make that stronger. So there's not shifting sands. It's not, well, we decide this and then we decide that. We decided on a agreement as long as it has the teeth.
Right.
And meets those requirements. That takes away the
And I'm
shifting
all for
sands.
that. I think this is great work. Good job.
I've heard several times, and several people say, okay, I made this decision, where it was 3 months
Whatever
ago.
month.
And now all of a sudden, you've just changed your mind? And once again, what's the compelling reason? Why?
So that's what I was gonna answer next, is you said we collectively as a board several times. We went into closed session with, I don't know, I don't speak for everybody, with at least half the board not realizing that when we came out of there, we were gonna have a deal. It was some board members that said, we want to shut down transfers. The rest of the board is like, hey, we didn't know that there was an issue. Let's shut it down and let's reevaluate it. Because there are board members that said, I thought it was a shutdown temporarily to reevaluate our process. We hadn't done it in September or June or whatever. So it's time to do that. It's time to answer that question for the evaluation process of the deal. On your numbers report, as far as that, I don't know what the point is to that. If your point wasn't transfers don't bring in enough money because the other people in district bring in more, that's the point I took from that number, is because we get so much more money from in-house taxable appraisals than we do from the other guys. So transfers that we have don't bring in enough. The second one, or the last one is, I'm lost. I'll present this with another question that I have. I don't know how you can say we love them, I love them, get emotional with tears. I love everybody. I love all the. Sorry, I love all the transfers that we have. I just don't need any more of them. I don't, because these are going to be gone. You don't get to keep these transfers forever. They're going to move on, and then you get new.
That's what we should see what our kinder enrollment is, because once a graduating class graduates, what's this year's current graduating number? What is it? 68. Well, can't we just wait and see what that kinder class is going to come into our district?
I agree 100%.
Right.
Is that board member roles to see what the kindergarten numbers are and follow those through, or is it these people that get paid all the money to do that? That sounds like an educator issue.
Our decision is transfer.
Our
And
policy.
we need some information for that, like knowing how many's in the kindergarten, that's certainly.
They give us enrollment every month. We don't need to be facetious in our tone. They give it to us every month. We're every month we get those reports.
Right.
Every month we talk about those. It's not we're trying to hide information from us, guys.
We said trying to hide information.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else
I
on
have
the
one
or
more
we'll talk?
question
Go ahead.
that came up in that conversation, and I just jotted it down because I heard it for the first time. If we're getting 6160 from the district, from the state, but it's actually costing roughly around $10,000 to educate a student, where's the extra $38.40 coming from? How are we finding that money to educate those students? So, from
Every time
in-district
you
tax.
add transfer a student, you take the overall
Okay.
cost of, or the money that you have to spend per student goes down every time you take one in. It's just the way it works.
So where did it takes $10,000 a student to educate them come from?
I threw out an estimate, and that's a decent ballpark, so in front of me,
Okay,
yeah.
that's what we used, but that's not what was needed necessarily.
It's not the exact amount, but it's close enough.
But we like the ballpark, because there's so
Like
many
a million
variables.
versus a
This
quarter
whole
of
sheet back here
three-quarters.
is variable.
I get it,
This whole sheet with
And
coming with
the
constantly is variable. Just so that's why.
but it does cost more than the 6160
Yes.
the state is giving us, and then that money is coming from in-district
Taxes,
taxes.
businesses and individuals.
Okay,
Right.
I was just clarifying.
Tax money.
Gotcha.
Anybody else?
Conservative school district will be sharing it.
Anybody have any questions or points?
What are we going on now?
Yeah, what are we trying to?
Anybody, anything you want to. You're asking, what are we trying to do?
Yes.
It's the transfer agreement and everything is presented for current transfers going into next year. And current transfers going into next year have no agreement unless it's the old agreement. That's what we just were
But also they
presented.
grandfathered in with the agreement that we approved. that-
They get approved every year though.
Yes, but they're currently covered by the old agreement, correct?
Yes. Confused, because
Based
you
on
just,
this agreement, there's no grandfather. They screw up and they're out.
Yeah.
What's a grandfather? What does that mean?
That's why I'm not understanding, so we're trying to approve this tonight, and this applies to the next semester. The next semester.
if we approve it, it would go in effect immediately as to.
Right.
And the
new
process has been, in the 4 years that I've been here, if someone applies at semester, there's been an instance, I think, 2 during semester, and administration deems that there's room, transfers are allowed in.
Basically ratify this tonight, right?
That's been the process in the past 4 years.
Right, okay.
And if we approve this, we do have room at the high school for
Right.
some more transfers.
So the way I hear it, you do the word open. I don't understand what that means.
Well, I don't.
Open enrollment, because I just wrote down, the first thing I wrote, hold on, let me finish. You had a long time to talk. I just want to say a couple of things, maybe 30 seconds. The first thing, 2 things that I wrote is elementary is full, junior high is full, capacity. That's what I wrote. How does that open? That's closed. So the only thing that I would say tonight is that we're taking a look at a document, establishing policy so these people can do their job. I've been on the board off and on since 2012 and never scrutinized and micromanaged the pre-K class. Never have I looked that detailed at this. It's just like, what tools do they need to do their job? And we get out of the way. That's how I look at my job as a school board member. Not to say, you can come in and you can't come in. That's their job.
You're exactly right.
And now we're talking about, you want to wait until the pre-K numbers come in. That's her job. That's her job based on these tools. And if it's full, it's full. There are zero transfers, if I'm hearing right? That's the question.
Transfers is what grade?
Any grade.
Oh, allowed in.
Yeah, I mean, if we have 72 in-house school tax-paying students in next year's pre-class, what does that tell you? Basically, that's full. There are no pre-Kers. We're just establishing an outline.
To open enrollment in high school. That's part of the
It's not specific.
This-
High school.
This is,
It's not specific.
Well, Ms. Murphy, you said that
there is room at the high school based on their discretion to run this policy.
yeah, see, we don't want to allow them in high school.
You don't want it in high school either.
But don't want, I mean, we want with ones that are here. That's what I thought we decided in that meeting.
But we didn't vote. I understand that, because I was given misinformation, so I thought we voted. We didn't vote.
You didn't vote.
Because I said in open meeting that, hey, I wasn't really happy either because somebody uttered that we voted, and I thought we voted, and we didn't vote. So there's no action
Plus that,
in June or September, whatever they're talking about.
and
Done.
at that June.
There was no action.
I told Les, I said, the board can tell me this, but we will have to revisit it. I don't know.
Maybe I don't know.
So this type.
I was under the impression on one that we had to.
Yeah.
Or if we don't ratify this, we go back to this and she does whatever she's been doing this whole time, right?
Yes, and I think what, I think maybe.
That's the policy?
The policy's fine. It's letting in more students, that's the issue. The 10 in the high school, that's the issue.
So that's what he's answering by, right.
Yes.
For you? Okay. Because that's not the issue with me. I mean, it's just a policy. It's just a policy. You know, it's like, if there's room for 5, that's what, 30 grand? I don't know. But it shouldn't be about money. It should be about the administrators running our school.
Well, isn't that what it is about, huh?
Can be.
But I thought
For
that's
this
what
year,
our job is
it's false.
reported, because it's just a parent, I'm school with the administrators running my school. What I thought a board's job is to oversight is to be an overview to make sure that policies, finances, I mean, 'cause that's like always the biggest thing, that y'all are real like super awesome, they all work so hard to get this in the black, not the red, right? Right? As past boards, y'all worked really hard, because for years there was what? Because deficit means a surplus, and from what I understand.
I think the increased enrollment shows that we've worked really hard over the last 4 or 5 years and that everybody wants to come to school here.
That we have an awesome case.
We didn't have it 4 or 5 years ago.
I feel that I think this policy, rock solid, it's great, but it has a lot more teeth than the old one. I think it's great. What I'm worried about is, yes, like Anthony, five coming into high school. What I'm concerned about with those 5 coming into high school is how are our core classes sitting? Because that's where the numbers, even in the policies are, we said our core classes were just
That was one of
stretched.
my 3 to 4 points that I laid out, is that it doesn't affect those ratios. That's one of the things that I said that she wrote down. And that's one of the things that was talked about initially.
Because I talked to the taxpayers and parents,
My whole thing too.
you know, their issue is with the change in dynamics in classes, personally amongst the kids. They have to, it's an issue. But I hear it. Negative.
In what way? New people coming into a class change
Change in dynamics.
in a negative way. How?
There's a lot of examples of.
Well, but so a new move-in that moves in, and we can't deny them moves in, they change the makeup of the class too. Is that negative?
Somewhat, but usually it's not the same.
So transfer kids change the makeup in a more negative way than move-in kids change the makeup.
They walk around our town, they buy goods at our stores, and the transfers don't. They're more like just, live in a bedroom community, bring your child over to our school, drop them off. And I've heard parents, you can disagree all you want, I don't know how many people you've got to.
No, not total zero.
Yeah, sounds like it. And because
And I've never been in a store in Poth, and I've never been in a store in Poth where I've seen a transfer. Or thought about it, transfer, because of
a
money.
whole bunch of them, and I haven't had a single one say do anything except for stop the transfers.
Well, then you're not talking to the ones I do talk to. And it's not zero, and we're not advancing the conversation, we're arguing. You said you had to say something.
On this, yes, what we're voting on. Okay, first, under the student conduct part, where it has, on page 6 of 8 at the top, that first paragraph up there, says, any conduct by the student that could result in a discretionary DAEP removal may result in revocation of this agreement. I don't like the word may there. To me, that should be will result, because that's a well, this situation, or well, that situation. To me, I want the word it will. I mean, 'cause that's going to be, well, he got away with this. So then that's going to come down to, how bad of a situation was it? Or, that's just, it needs, if they're gonna get sent to DAEP that we pay for, hefty fine to pay for, to send the kids over there, I'm not gonna pay for a transfer kid to go to DAEP. That's ridiculous. If they're gonna get sent there, immediately, they are revoked. And
That makes
that's
sense on the
another
money
thing
side.
I would like in here is if they have broken this policy, I don't want it to be days, not weeks, not 3 strikes, and definitely not months later, that they're gonna be told, you're no longer a transfer. It needs to be immediate. I'm sorry if it's the first week of school and they broke this policy already. They're revoked, and you're no longer a student of Poth ISD. Not waiting till the semester, not waiting to the end of the school year, and let's see how many more times they can get caught doing this, or bring in this, or cause other issues, or park where they're not supposed to, or have stuff in their vehicle, whatever the situation may be. I don't like it waiting weeks and months later before this is revoked. Another thing, y'all did mention that every single transfer, except elementary, is in some type of UIL or extracurricular activity. If we get one that is not, I would like to have them, that they would have to be on the mandatory drug testing. In order to get into school, you're gonna be drug tested. If they're gonna come in January, they should have to be drug tested if they are gonna wanna play sports, be in UIL, park a car here. Our kids have to do it, so why
Well, with no
why
parameters,
couldn't they?
with no parameters. Whether they park the car here or not, just
No,
because.
they should be drug tested, and they should be subject to
The grades of the test.
and they should be subject to.
Yeah, not
when
elementary,
there's-
right, not elementary.
No.
Right. First grade, bring him out here.
Not elementary.
At junior high, Dawn, we currently test
Any new enrollments fill out that form, so the next time that we have the drug testing, they're on the docket to be tested. All new students, regardless of their transfer or in district, all new students.
Is that
are
just
on
in
that.
junior high, or does high school
No,
also
high
have
school
that?
does that as well.
They have to be in some type of an activity.
But, well, and
They have to
they
park.
have to be in some, let me clarify that, they do have to be, but we worked really hard, 100% of our 7th and 8th graders were tested, so.
Yeah, that's-
We don't, but that was calling parents, and it's junior high too, so kids are still trying things. And it is, your child won't get to try anything, this covers everything.
That kind of goes back to the involvement, the student involvement, the parent involvement, and so you get a list when you move in, which program would you like to be in? If not, I'm gonna write your name by one. Oh, now that you're in that program, you get drug tested. Right, that's strong on that to some degree. Dawn, what else did you have on that?
can Portuguese use on, Dawn, you're saying 7 through 12?
Well, what the grade levels at?
Yeah, whatever we
7
cover.
through 12.
Is that under student conduct?
Yes. Or we'll probably put a separate paragraph for drug testing, mandatory drug testing.
Okay, on the student and parent right to appeal, I would like to see some type of time limit on that.
It's already in place in our current policy.
There's a time limit on that? What is it? Because I haven't seen a time limit on
It
this.
doesn't have to be in there, it's in your board policy. Yeah, 15 days from the time of the event.
Okay.
If they don't, from the time that you're aware of the event, that's already in policy.
And they made their level, their frequencies. That means that
Yeah. I mean, they have the right,
we can't go right into
they have to, legally, they have to have the opportunity.
Would that be another time limit?
But-
30 days, 30 days.
Let's go, when you read whatever consequences for whatever event you're reading, continue. So if there's a revocation of transfer agreement, that child is unenrolled during that grievance process. Just like if you agree that your child got 3 days ISS, you start the process, but your child served those 3 days of ISS while the grievance process is working. So that, I believe, Donna answers your question or fact about immediate removal.
Mr. Castillo, you're quiet. You ready to vote? You have all the information you need to vote? That's where I was going next. That's a good segue. So last chance for any board member that wants to make a point that has not yet been made. Anybody have, you saying?
Well, with all the changes being made, are we waiting until that is then brought to us?
So we can change that policy at the next board meeting?
Or are we?
We're not changing any of the policies, we're changing the process and procedure in the agreement. And what I've got written down here is that may, under the discipline, may is changed to will, and add in that it's immediate. And there will be mandatory drug testing for 7 through 12.
Regardless of program participation.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, did you make the changes, or do you think they're needed for the students standards required to know in the hours, if they're not completed, will make it not? Is that in there? Or is there a grace period?
Yes, we have. How will we handle those that don't meet community service agreement?
Anybody have any other questions about these?
So if this is going into place immediately, then your transfer students and parents are going to be required to have those hours, half of the hours by the end of the semester?
No, it's
Next
next year.
So this
2021.
is for next year?
Right, they've already signed their agreements for this.
Okay. So everything then goes into place off of this next year?
All of this goes
This.
into place.
This is for next year? Okay.
Correct. But if we move this into policy, we're then giving it to the administrators to, if it meets the requirements of all these things, then you're allowed to bring a transfer in if they come in 2 weeks from now. They would have to sign this new agreement. So that answers the question of, are we just, Heidi earlier, is this just for the current transfer? No, this is a policy accepting transfers that fit this criteria moving forward. So,
And you notice this one is different than the one that we've had for the 4 years that I inherited. There is no date up here. This is the policy that we're using, the procedure, the process from here out.
Mandatory drug testing was added. May was changed to will.
And we will put in
The hours.
guidelines if community service agreement is not approved.
immediately get revoked.
Yes, immediately revoked.
Is that going to be part of your recommendation?
Presented to the changes.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Mrs. Rankin to run through the list one more time of what the agreement is going to be amended to if it's approved.
My recommendation is to approve the non-resident student transfer agreement as presented with the following changes. Under the discipline section, may is changed to will in regards to DAEP, that they will be immediately revoked. We will be adding a section on mandatory drug testing, and this will include even if a student at grades 7 through 12 is not involved in any extracurricular activity, they don't park a car on campus, they will go through mandatory drug testing. And then we will review and modify the section under parent guardian support to add offer the event community service by the parent is not accomplished, what stipulations are put in place?
Okay, so with those being mine, your recommendation is,
To approve the Poth ISD student transfer agreement as presented with noted changes.
okay, so the floor is open to any action considering this action item and that recommendation for this agreement.
Yes. My recommendation is to approve the Poth ISD transfer agreement as presented with the noted changes.
I motion to approve the Poth ISD transfer agreement as presented with the changes.
I'll second it. Been moved and seconded. Voting for the transfer agreement in the aye means that you're allowing transfer for any students that meet those requirements moving forward. Nay is obviously in the negative to disagree with that. I'm going to ask for a show of hands in anticipation that there may be votes either side. Show of hands, been moved and seconded. All in favor of the transfer agreement, please hold your hand up. All against, please hold your hand up. Motion carries 5-2. The good news is that is the end of the action items. So with that, it's 8:42. We're going to recess to a break, 5 to 10 minutes. Then we'll come back and take the communication items as part of the